Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. First of all, how many people were at World of Modular last year and sat in on Alan's and my presentation on workforce development? Whoops. Nobody. Okay, cool. We've got a whole new group of people. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank MBI. I know you guys have students coming through your program. We're really grateful you guys are reaching out and starting to do that. They've got tomorrow 20 high school students coming from a local vocational program, and they're going to sit down with some of the professionals and people, some of the factories and whatnot, and learn a little bit more about modular. And then I don't think there's anybody from Trimco even at the conference, but they also sponsored that as well. I think it was together. And there's also like a handful of, I think, 8 college students that are here from around the country, actually. So they helped to sponsor that. So I think with everything we keep doing with this, I'm sure Tom would be more than happy if any of the manufacturers or any of the product people would want to help sponsor these to get more kids coming. I think this is, again, you're going to hear from us, the engagement, the exposure to what we all do is what's going to continue to build the pipeline. So I'm going to have our panelists just give a quick introduction of themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Merrick Macomber. I'm EA to our CEO of Autovol and Chief Culture Officer at Autovol and Prefab Logic.
Colby Swanson, I work with Heather, so Momentum Innovation Group, and I'll be talking a little bit more about some other activities we're doing after these guys get through their all the cool things they're doing with students. So.
Craig Landri, President of Signature Building Systems. We're a modular manufacturer in Northeast Pennsylvania.
My name is Alan Rassmussen with Modern Building Systems. We're located just outside Salem, Oregon. Commercial factory direct manufacturer since 1971. And I really look forward to talking about this topic. It's something I feel very passionate about and could really bring some success to your guys' factories.
So one of the things that I kind of wanted to start off with was explaining kind of like why Colby and we don't have a factory, but why we're involved with this. And we won a Department of Energy Building Technologies Office Benefits Award a few years back to specifically try to build workforce development for offsite construction. And so that's what we have been focusing on. We work with middle schools and high schools on that side of it, trying to promote things. I know Merrick and Craig and Alan are all working with mainly high school students, and then Colby's going to touch on how all of this starts pulling together and where the pipeline kind of starts to take off for like the whole industrialized construction and kind of the future of manufacturing. So we're just going to kind of jump into a video, and this is going to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what we're all working on. Anyways, what you guys are going to see is it's going to start off with some of the stuff Colby and I have been doing with specifically a middle school in the Philadelphia area who's running a construction trades program for 4th graders through 8th graders. So these are 4th graders. They're practicing different techniques of offsite construction. They were building walls in class. We also provided them with a wiki house model, which is a interesting European technology. And so they're kind of just learning these ideas of components and like why you build stuff offsite, onsite. This is Evan, the teacher. He's showing a news crew that 4th graders are using power tools in his class. And so, if anyone ever tells me 4th graders don't know how to do this, they do. And they're actually really safe about it, pretty competent. We're also designing a Minecraft education platform that has some off-site things in it. Doesn't look exactly like a factory, no, but there's some principles to it that they're learning about it, how to set the buildings, and there's the factory. Autovol, great place. We'll talk about this a little more, but Merrick's been running tours with a local high school, and they also go into colleges and teach on all the technology and BIM, I think you guys are doing, just a lot of different things. So these are some of the college classes that they have going on. And then Signature Building Systems, they've got working with a couple different high schools, I believe, Craig, correct? And they have multiple students coming in. Craig's going to talk to you guys later about The fact he doesn't even have room for all the kids that want to come to his factory. They're all high school students, so. And then with Alan's group too as well, he works with a C-Tech that's in Salem. And these kids are outside building, they're in his factory. This is actually at the school. But that's one of the kids that has been in his factory working. And the girl on the right is actually a code nerd. She decided she loved codes after going to work for Alan. And this is back in Autovol's factory, and we'll touch a little bit on, again, why this all kind of comes together, and this being like the future of the industry, and why we really need to get kids on board and teach them as much as possible early, so that they have this kind of knowledge where you guys are able to take them and utilize them the way we need to with automation and things like that. So very fun stuff we have going on. So we'll just start off with the first kind of question for the whole panel. And really, like, for all of you guys, what has been the most important thing that you have found that working with students and young people that you need to really address when you start working with them?
For Autovol and Prefab Logic, it's commitment. Commitment to the schools that we're engaging with, commitment to the students, and commitment to being those mentors that they're looking for.
Craig?
Sure. Culture is tantamount to pretty much anything else. Making sure you have the right culture that welcomes the students. They're walking in, they have no work experience for the most part. They don't even know where the bathrooms are, as you can imagine. So if you welcome them, you teach them, you mentor them, you nurture them, they're going to come back day in and day out. So how we go with culture.
Yeah, I would second that. There needs to be a discussion internally and externally. Internally with your team, and I remember some of the looks on like my plant supervisor's face. Some station leads are like, "You want to do what, Alan? You want to bring?" And I'll speak more to this. I was bringing 16, 17, 18-year-olds into my factory, give them a nail gun, and they weren't big fans at first. And now, if you go see my plant manager, my station leads, they go, "Alan, when are you going to get me another C-Tech student? I want more of those students." So you gotta, I would have a discussion about commitment and culture, and you do have to mentor these kids. You got to be a little patient. They are going to give you great effort and desire, and they do have skills. These kids that are coming out of these CTE programs have really good skills that you can easily translate into your factory, because their classroom at these CTE vocational schools looks a lot like your factory. It's a very easy transition. And then externally, you need to talk with the schools and have a great partnership there. And some of my partnerships I've gained, they call me and go, "Hey, Alan, I've got another rock star for you. You need to meet this kid." Okay. And I invite them out to the factory, and just had I have the instructors come out to the factory so they see it, so they know where they're sending their students. So there just needs to be that discussion and commitment internally and externally.
Great. Colby, do you have anything to add?
Of course. I don't have a factory, but just listening to what these guys are doing, and you're looking at like 3 leaders in the industry who are really trying to make a difference and really try to tap into the next generation of our workforce, which we're not doing a great job of, by the way, as an industry. And I'm curious, just raise of hands, how many people are like in the same boat as everybody, struggling to find workforce, struggling to find like who's going to take over, whether it's take over the business or who's going to be that next leader in the industry. We need to get cracking. We're behind as an industry, and so it's what they're doing is part of what Heather is studying and trying to understand, and then how do we replicate that across hundreds and thousands of factories? And so how do we make these connections between, the industrialized construction industry as a broad statement back to our high schools and our middle schools? How do we make those connections on a local level? So if a kid decides, look, I'm not going to college, or even if they do, they decide, I want to go to college and I want to get a construction degree because of an experience they had in middle school or high school at one of these factories. We need to turn that crank a lot faster than we are right now. So that's part of what the problem we're trying to address. So
Yeah, and so before you can get those students into your factory, there is this exposure problem. I'll call it the problem, the challenge, I guess. And so one of the things I know everybody's doing right now is the tours. And it seems like a really basic thing. And I know if you've got a factory out here, you might already be doing tours. But Craig, I mentioned the one thing with your school that I was talking about. But Merrick, you want to start just kind of mentioning like the impact of that both on the students and the educators that are teaching?
Wow. Yeah, for us, when I first was entertaining the idea of bringing students in, it came with open arms from all of our leadership and all of our solutionaires. Everybody was really eager to take part in teaching what they knew. And the tours that we give, it's a full tour. I mean, it's not just a factory tour. We go through all of our office spaces. We go into marketing. We go into purchasing. We go into estimating. We go upstairs to Prefab Logic. We show them what all of the design engineers are doing up there. We give them a full, well-rounded picture of all of the job opportunities that are in construction. So if they're looking for, maybe somebody's not going to go on to college. Well, there's a job for you here. But maybe you are going to go on to college. Well, there's a job for you here. And there's a warm, welcoming place where we've developed a culture that they want to live in and they want to start their career in. We've got scooters in our facility that you buzz around in. And so we get to show these kids you get to have fun at work. We have lots of fun. We have a fun game room. We have a lot of things that are appealing to younger generations and to work in a factory-controlled environment.
I think exposure is so key. I remember in, first grade, we did a time capsule and it asked you, one of the questions was, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think I knew of 3 jobs at that point: firefighter, policeman, and doctor. So when you think about that, it's a simple concept, but as you get more and more exposed to different occupations, you kind of triangulate what you want to do. And welcome these students in, giving them tours, making them know that this is an option for them is definitely the first step.
Yeah, and Craig had a mutual teacher we work with. She runs the CTE program over with his factory. She had never been in his factory before, and she's sending kids to him. And she said to me the other day, I finally went and I met Craig and I did the tour. I get it. I totally get it. Even though the kids have been doing it for a while, she finally was like, I'm getting on board with this because I actually understand why this matters now. So that was a really cool thing.
Yeah, and I would say that once I tasted that first success with these students, I get really excited for the tours because it's almost like a recruiting trip. It's a recruiting trip. You're bringing in the football star to, want to come play for your school. I bring these kids in, and in Modular, we have almost you have all the trades. You got plumbing, electrical, you got framing, you got finish carpentry. You've got all these opportunities, and then, couple it with drafting, design, engineering, project management. You can show them almost the whole breadth of the construction industry at our factory, and there's so many limitless opportunities for them to go in a bunch of different directions right there at our factory. So I have my card, I have apps ready to go, or give them the the QR code to our website where to start applying, and I treat those like recruiting visits. And those kids are, those students, they're very eager to want to jump on board after they've gone through a tour.
Yeah, maybe another angle on this is you're trying to get the students excited, but I think at the same time, and maybe you guys can correct me, I think having younger kids come into a factory really inspires the factory.
Yeah.
Right? And they probably feel this energy that kids bring, and that breaks up their day, that breaks up the week, that kind of gives a little relief because I've been in those factories and it's go, go, go. It's an environment where that kind of comic relief really, really goes a long ways. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, I think you're right. I hadn't really thought about that until you just said that they come in with such an eagerness and drive to want to work. It's either they've had a job and it's at the pizza shop or something, and this is an adult career job that I get to do. My friends, I got the best job out of all my friends. I'm making good money, And they come in with such a drive and a little bit of a spark that, you know, some of the people that kind of been there, it's it can get monotonous, and that spark wears off on the rest of the team for sure.
And just one point, Colby and I had done a survey for this DOE project that we did, and it was over 500 middle schoolers, and we're trying to understand, like, really how young do kids think about careers. And we were trying to get to the point, like, not that you're like, oh, I want to be a YouTube star because everybody's a YouTube star, but like, how are they thinking about these careers? And I think it was 76% of them, 5th grade or younger, were already contemplating the type of career. And we asked them to explain why they were doing that. And they were like, oh, so-and-so's brother does this, or my uncle took me to this one place once. So this exposure thing, you guys, it's not a joke. Like, and I think as adults, we think it's not, you know, maybe as impactful, but for these kids, it's like these first ideas and things that are getting placed in front of them. So I think it's really important. I want to go back to culture really quick, because construction industry in general for the past, not the greatest cultures. I mean, I can speak to this. My dad was in construction for 35 years. It's all about working hard, getting paid, and just doing your thing. And I've been having these conversations with him trying to explain culture. But I'd like each factory to kind of talk a little bit about what you guys are doing in your factories to kind of improve culture or make it more fun. Merrick, I know you've got a lot to say on culture, but.
Do you want me to go first? Sure. Okay. Well, we put culture at the forefront of all of our decision making. We established our values at the very beginning of starting our facility, and we live and die by our values. The culture that we bring is a happy culture, it's a positive culture, it's an inspiring culture, it's everything that a young student or a young Merrick would want to work in. And we try to inspire the students that come in by showing them, gosh, work isn't scary. It doesn't have to be dreadful, like maybe your parents are in a dreadful job. Well, here it's different. And for us, if you're not a positive person, you're kind of not in our group. And I would say that, I don't know. I could go on a lot about culture. I'm a little nervous, but it's the one thing that makes us so successful in all of our companies. It's the one thing that keeps our people happy, healthy. They're coming to work with a smile. They're leaving work with a smile, and it just kind of, I would say, like, it's like a big explosion when you come into our factory.
Autovol exudes positivity. I've been there. Like, you leave and you just feel like you can do anything pretty much. So, Greg, do you want to talk?
Sure. Early on, we had a challenge with our culture. Probably 10, 15 years ago, our factory was more set up for incentivized building per department. So each department had a certain number of tasks they had to complete by the end of the day. And if they completed, they could either leave early or got paid extra. What that led to was some departments finishing earlier than others, and it became more of a competitive situation, which can be good sometimes, but in this case, it would create a lot of bottlenecks for us. So what we really wanted to instill was a team mentality and get everyone working together, because it didn't matter from a revenue standpoint or from a production standpoint how many floor systems we built any given day. What matters is the number of modules that get off the production line. So we really spent a lot of time developing our culture into a team mentality that we're all working together. You know, we're going to succeed together, we're going to fail together. So we spend a lot of time trying to promote a positive team mentality culture signature.
And what I would say on this topic is we talk about modular and we say we build in a controlled environment. You also have a controlled environment to control that culture. You think about a stick-built world, there's subs and different subcontractors of GC, and it's a big spread out ordeal. You're in a tight-knit family, and so you have a really great opportunity to build a culture and control it. What I would say a byproduct in working with the students is kind of a culture vein is women in the trades. I've had a lot more success in being able to get more women to work in a factory setting, and these ladies that are going to high school and whatnot, once they come for a tour, they're like, oh well, this is nice. I could ease into the trade with this, and they meet some of my other ladies that work in the factory, and they get to sit and chat, and so I've got like young mothers that want to be electricians, and they are electricians. They're in the apprenticeship program, and that works for them. Working in modular works for them. Whereas if they worked in the stick-built world, they'd be going, having to go to a job site here, a job site there, where they have a good family work-life balance, being able to come to one construction site that's controlled. And touching back on like the tour topic, I love when it's a nasty rainy day when there's a tour, because you got to go from the office across 100 yards, and it could be pouring down rain. We all scurry across not to get wet. And it's an easy selling point. Would you like to be out there framing or roofing or in that, or you're in the factory? So, but I would say culturally, it's helped a lot in injecting more women into the trade and into our company.
The idea about more women in the workforce, and I think young girls who come in and see Merrick that's not something they would get out on a job site. And I came from the on-site traditional construction, production, home building business. I probably could count on one hand how many women I saw out on the job site. Just didn't happen. Now you go into a factory today, 20, 30% of the workforce. There's no reason why it can't be 50, and it should be. So there's this huge opportunity to inspire half of the population and give them a different perspective when they walk into that factory and they go, oh, like, I could be a framer, I could be a plumber, I could be an electrician. I think that's like a huge untapped, and it's a cultural thing. So if they see it, the kids see it, then all of a sudden it's an idea in their head. And so the other thing I think about culture is, and again, this is something you guys will have to correct me on, but I'm sure kids are pretty keen on, like, they can pick up if this is a cool place to be. If the people there are having a good time or enjoying what they're doing, or they're working together and there's like, wow, man, everybody's on the same wavelength, I'm sure kids pick up on that stuff. And so, culture, if you're gonna have a train of younger generation coming through, you better dial that in, because they may be walking out the end of that tour going, no way, I wanna work there. Or, wow, that was awesome, like, sign me up.
And then, Alan, I'm going to have you talk a little bit more. So, Alan has really, and all of these guys, everybody who's doing workforce development, if you're doing it in here, we're not trying to sit up here and be like, we're experts and nobody knows what they're doing. But this is hard work. This is a long-term commitment. We're not just going to do this for 5 years and then all of a sudden you're going to never have to do it again. This is you're probably going to have to do this a little bit forever. But Alan has been really successful, like he said earlier, about building a relationship with his local school. And what's happened with that is what he said, they just keep going to him. Like, he gets the first pick, the best pick. So Alan, do you want to talk a little bit more how you built that relationship?
Yeah, so in Salem, Oregon, there's about 6 or 7 high schools that make up that school district. And very generous man and a developer in town, he wanted to create more CTE program. And he set up, with a partnership with the school district, created a place called the Career Technical Education Center. And these kids go to that school for their program, construction, welding. They have like 15 programs now. They go to that school 2.5 days out of the week. It's not a 1-hour shop class. It's not 1 hour of welding. They go there. Their English class is tied to like reading blueprints, writing submittals, that type of stuff. Their math is around volume of cubic yards of concrete to pour in a form or something. And they really try to create a bit of the public-private partnership, so they want businesses to engage. And I was going and mentoring kids and doing tours and kind of meeting some of these kids, and they started doing these hiring fairs. And I'd go to the hiring fair and I'd go, well, how old are you? And they go, well, I'm 16, I'm 17. I don't turn 18 till next year. and they want to work. They're ready to go now, and the skills and what they're learning, they can handle the nail gun, they can handle the saw, they can do this work, but then they can't go do it. I mean, I can only hire, you know, maybe a couple to do some power washing, some painting, some garbage cleanup, you know, but you know, per OSHA law, they can't even step inside that factory, so they're kind of in the periphery, and I did that, you know. My family company, Dad, you're going to the factory, and it's picking up nails and breaking down aluminum steps. So I started talking to the state Bureau of Labor, and I said, well, what's going on? They're doing this in class, but why can't I put them to work? And let's get a state law changed or something. And he goes, what you need to do is look up the student learner program. And so there's in the federal Code of Federal Regulations, in the federal OSHA, is called the student learner program. And so I piloted that with Salem-Keizer School District, and that allows, you get your child labor permit, and then through that student learner agreement, and we send it out DocuSign, the school signs it, the parent guardian signs it, and then the business signs it. And by having that set up, I can bring 16, 17-year-olds into the factory, and they're not restricted on tools and whatnot. And so that untapped a ton of new options and possibilities. I have some of those seniors that aren't 18 quite yet, but they only have school a couple days a week. They come and work part-time. So Tommy Hand is at work today in the factory, working 16 hours a week, and goes to school the other 3 days a week. And so in the summer, I've got 17-year-olds framing. And like I said, you can go to any one of my station leads, and they'll go, some of my best people I get, you know, are the C-Tech students. And it works out. I mean, we all ramp up crazy trying to turn as many floors as we can in the summertime, and that labor comes in, and then it just naturally goes out. And so it's actually a win-win. And early on, I'd get so excited. Here's the state framing champion. He's going to be my saw shop lead. He's going to do, you know, he's my future. But you got to remember, these are young kids, and they got to go explore and bop around a little bit. And it just used to eat me up. But then I just realized I got this everlasting pipeline of this relationship with these schools, and so every year I have more students, you know, wanting to join and come work than I can take, and so every year I've never had, from year to year, I've never had a bad crop of these students come in and work for me. So that opportunity is out there. It's a very simple process to do, and I'm more than happy. You can contact me anytime. I'm more than happy to go over that with somebody. So it's a federal thing, so it goes state to state.
Yeah, and we'll have all of our contact info after this is over if anybody wants to contact it. We're all here to talk to people about this. So Craig, I'm going to start with you on this just because we just kind of talked about this the last week or so. But so some of the stuff Colby and I are working on, again, we're working directly with the factories and the schools. And here's the problem we're coming at. And this is solvable, but it's going to take industry-wide commitment to do it, and it's going to take money to do it. Because what's happening is you have these CTE programs. Every kid in the school wants to go to the CTE program. And if it's not set up a way, I won't get on my soapbox about education reform right now, but if it's not set up the right way, you have kids, sometimes 300, 400 kids on a waiting list to get into these programs, and they're never going to be able to do them until they get like the lottery system going. And then again, in the factory side, they can't take 50 kids in at once to do it. I mean, you've only got a certain amount of people doing the education too. So Craig, kind of give the numbers and like what's been happening with CTCLC and that.
Sure, we work with 2 votech schools, both about 10 to 20 minutes away. Right now we're employing 13 students. During the school year, they work about 2 to 3 hours a day after lunch. But during the summertime, we get them for upwards of 40 hours a week. So those 13 students would make up about 10% of our direct labor workforce, which is a huge boost. And like Alan said, summertime is a very busy time for us to build. Going back to the original question, once you build those relationships with those votech schools, you almost get your pick of the litter. So you get the best of the best they have to offer. And if you're combining that with a good culture, they want to continue working with you. So I think Alan also mentioned, it's sad to see some of them leave because you put all this time and commitment into them, and you want to keep them coming back after they graduate. and we probably retain about 2 or 3. You know, some will join the Marines, some go on, they want to join other different companies. We had a couple come back, so we usually keep about 2 or 3. And like Alan said, it's a nice pipeline to have them come back, and every year you get a new crop. So.
Yeah, and I've also looked at that as they leave, but they go into the industry, and so it's a rising tide that's going to lift all boats. It just creates, they go fill a need somewhere else, and it creates another person to be available to come in and work in your factory. And they showed a picture of Alyssa, and she goes, I want to do code. I want to be a plan reviewer. I want to be an inspector. That's what I want to do. And I said, well, to be a really good plan reviewer, inspector, and I got lots of kids that want to be an engineer or architect, I go, you're going to be a better engineer, architect, or reviewer if you've come and swung the hammer. You've actually done it yourself. You've been a designer. So come work for the summer and let her walk with the inspectors when they would come into the factory and whatnot. And so I got a great 3 months of work out of her in the summer doing acoustical ceiling tile. She was great at it. But that's what she wanted to do. So she moved on and is filling a need out in the industry that we all need. So.
And then just for everybody, kind of what collaboratively are some other ideas? I mean, I have some of my own idea, but I'd like to hear from you guys because you're dealing directly with the schools. Could we be doing? And this is like building our own schools. I don't know. Like, what is it that you guys have thought about internally or externally or talked about on your teams to kind of mitigate this?
I have this fantasy one day almost setting up a school in our, creating a small building and having actually a school system that does kind of what we're looking for exactly within the modular industry. And that could potentially lead to more site work as far as the installation of the modules as well. So that's probably a long way down the road, but for now, the votech provides a great asset to what we're looking to do.
I would say I serve on the board here at MBI, and I've been kind of pounding on them, my fellow board members, that the MBI needs to be very involved in this, and so the board and a few select companies can do that, but we're going to need all our manufacturing or vendors and companies to jump on that. And I feel that our industry has the best selling point of going to get these workers. You look at like the national NAHB or whatnot, and they're doing stuff for workforce development. But I feel strongly that people, these younger generation would rather come work in our factories to do construction work than be out in the rain and the mud. So I think that we need to group up as an industry and fellow companies to really push the workforce development.
Merrick, did you want to?
No.
I was thinking a couple of things. So you just touched on, I think this is bigger than just the factories. So we need developers getting involved. I don't know if there's any developers in the room, but that story, Alan, you were saying somebody was generous enough to like actually put their money and build a program specific for the construction industry. So those kind of partnerships are super unique, and that's part of what Heather's working on. Is how do you bottle that magic and then replicate it? So how do we find those types of private sector people in all the markets and start building these little like foundations that are specifically addressing, kids getting into factories and kids going into construction. I'm sitting here looking at Mitsubishi right here. Like, the product manufacturers can be partners, not from hey, we'll try to sell, equipment, you need to do that, but maybe there's a program to support the schools, both for you, and give them exposure to, there's mechanical and engineering things that go along in the HVAC business that you and these guys could probably benefit from if there was a mutual program between your suppliers and the factories. We did this really interesting project that Heather showed a little bit is Minecraft. I mean, at least 5 years ago, like every kid on the planet was playing Minecraft and knew what Minecraft was. I don't know if that's still true today, but So we went to Minecraft and we said, hey, can we create a factory, a modular factory, and can you like create a game around that, and let's put that into kids' hands and let them, you know, see what it is, like have a Minecraft world that is construction related and specifically off-site construction, not just the traditional stick build out in a job site. And then the last thing is Heather's really been, like, part of the problem is when a kid thinks about construction today, they think about what they see mostly when they're driving around with their parents. They see job sites. And so their idea of what construction is very different than what is going on here. And there's a very little chance that they're going to get that exposure unless they happen to go inside the factory or they happen to see the modules being set, which is, you know, like there's a low probability of that happening. And so what she's doing is Heather's developing off-site curriculum for the schools. So if there's a shop class teacher, instead of just teaching traditional construction, they're teaching about modular construction. And you saw some of that in the video. Kids are like pre-framing walls and standing walls up and like they're thinking about components and they're thinking about industrializing systems. And we don't have enough of that. So we're trying to build all that curriculum and trying to get that into the schools, but that's going to take some time. But I think giving kids a different perspective and giving the teachers in the schools that content so they can give them that perspective, this is all like, there's a lot of things we got to be doing.
I would really second that. We're working with the Nampa School District, and I was just there with a friend of mine with advanced heating and cooling because they're looking for kids come into the trades, and we were talking to the drafting teacher, and I was asking him, well, what are you teaching here? And he's teaching traditional construction of drafting. And so one of our goals is to get them to start to understand that even that skill set is different. And we can teach that in high school, and whenever they come out, they can be a seasoned drafter for modular construction. And it's just a different way of educating at a younger age.
Anything else to add? So Merrick, this is directed towards you, but Autovol, I believe you guys are 40% automated at this point. Is that the right number, Rick? And what I would really like you to kind of explain is, you guys are like in this future, kids see it as the futuristic, and you've got the robot arms that everybody saw and stuff, but how do you talk to kids when they're doing tours and, you're interviewing them or whatever, that there's this balance between, if you want to go do college, that's okay, and there's all these careers that can help support this, but like, how do you talk about the automation opportunities in your factory for these kids?
Yeah, so you don't have to have a college degree to run a robot. You can just be really great at video games. And a lot of our machine operators, that's kind of how they came about. And it was in our fun interview process, we get to learn a little bit about them, and we ask, hey, what movies are you watching, or what video games do you play? And then you find out that this guy or gal has been like secretly building their own computers, and you're like, wow, I would have never known that from your resume. And so it's fun to talk about it, and whenever we do our tours, I'll point out how they got this job, and it was because we found out they played video games, and they're really good at pushing buttons and really good at attention to detail. And we've kind of made construction sexy again and appealing because of the robots. It has taken off that heavy lifting off of the human body, and it has, it's like all kids grew up with technology. If you're under my age, you know how to operate pretty much. They could come in and operate all of our robots. And so for us, it's just showing them all of the opportunities that's out there. Yeah, there are a lot of positions that require a master's degree in our facility, but there's a lot of positions that don't require that at all. It just requires hard work, effort, right character, and a lot of these kids already have it. They're willing to, showcase themselves, because not every kid has grown up with, the right leaders in their lives, and they want to impress you. They want to, drive things forward, and they want to be successful, but they don't always have those right tools. And so whenever we are able to tour them and we're able to show, Cynthia she's a machine operator, and where she came from and how she got to her position, and it wasn't, a 4-year degree to get there. I think it's really exciting to work with younger generations. I wish that I had somebody when I was younger to show me what work could look like.
So we're going to kind of start to wrap things up so we have some question time, but one last thing for all the panels, and then we're going to end it with a little blip from Colby that I want him to talk about. But for anybody out here who's sitting here and they're feeling really inspired and ready to go with some of these programs and you haven't done it before, what kind of advice do you guys have for somebody who's literally starting from the ground up trying to do this, and what advice can you offer them?
Just go make those connections. Invest a little bit of time in reaching out to your school districts, your other educational programs in your communities, and see what's going on. Invest a little bit of time, because I can assure you it'll pay off tenfold with what you'll get out of those work source areas.
Assuming your culture is healthy, that's priority number one, as we spoke about earlier. So assuming that is working, pick up the phone, do a quick Google search. That's what I did. I said votech, Lackawanna County, found 2 votech schools, started emailing, started phone calling, and worked with them. It's very similar to what they're doing in the classroom. It's a natural transition for them. So just pick up the phone and give them a call.
So we are kind of just starting out. So it's just been boots on the ground. The past 2 years really of doing this has just been reaching out to the schools, letting them know that we're here. Whenever I just engaged with the Nampa School District, the counselors had said, "You're the first person that's came to me from industry wanting to make a difference in these kids' lives." And that inspired me to keep going. And so we've made connections not just with the Nampa School District, but with the local opportunity schools, with Dennis Technical Education, and we're continuing to go on. I mean, we're in the colleges, and it's just actually boots on the ground, making it happen and staying committed to your word.
And I would just quickly add to finish up. I was telling Craig this when we were sitting talking before this session started, and I had our CTEC instructors, the framing and the welding, or the construction and the welding teachers out at my factory a week or two ago. And when they see the effort they're putting in to try to better these kids' lives and better society with, people that are contributing to society with a good job, when they see that pay off, it re-energizes them to keep, going, and that they see there is some success in that, because they see it when the student's still going to school and they come back and, oh yeah, this is what we were doing at work, and can we do that in class? So it re-energizes your schools, your educators that are pouring a lot of time and effort and energy into that. To see it pay off, it re-energizes them.
Yeah, and when you're working with schools, you may run into people who are like, no, we have our job description, we're not doing anything else. But then there's these teachers like this middle school teacher, I don't know when this guy sleeps, he is on board for everything, every kid's important. I mean, that guy is doing tons of stuff. And I know a lot of the teachers you guys are working with are like that too, but I think having that right team, so don't get discouraged if you reach out to someone and they completely blow you off, because they've done that to all of us probably. So lastly, I think, what does this all matter like in terms of long-term stuff? Because we can talk about like the training in middle school level and it builds to high school, and that's great. I would love to see kids getting out of high school with 7 years of construction type experience and getting into whatever they want to do. But what about community colleges? What about college? Like we're not trying to minimize any of that, and we do know there are some things that need that. So I'm going to let Colby talk a little bit about another initiative that we're kind of building off of all of this work in the Appalachian region, just for some other exciting stuff for factories and schools.
How much time do we have left?
We got 50
Oh, so there'll be plenty of time for questions. The National Science Foundation, I'm sure most people have heard of it. They are putting out, they put out a RFP, a request for proposals, about 6 months ago. And as a construction industry, the industrialized construction industry, we put in 2 proposals. The entire construction industry put 2 proposals in of the 190 proposals that were given to the National Science Foundation to win $160 million per grant. And they're giving out 3 grants minimum. So there'll be a $160 million grant that goes to maybe the construction industry, but it's not just us. Aerospace, agriculture, I mean, every technology, every industry is competing for this money. It's a huge amount of money. And so the industrialized construction group, a lot of people in this room helped us put together that proposal. We submitted it back in late January, and we'll find out if we get those funds by I think September. It takes a little while of this year. And what that money is meant to do is, the way we wrote that proposal, is to grow this industry, the industrialized construction space. And I use that as a very broad term. Anything where you're taking work, labor, and material, and you're moving it from the job site to a factory, that's industrialized construction. It's 3D printing, it's panelized, it's mass timber, it's anything that you start shifting that work and that effort and the people from the job site to a factory. And 1/3 of that money is workforce development. And I'll tell you why, because there's a few factories here, and maybe there's a couple more in the audience. We need 1,000 new factories in this country, right, to meet the demand of construction over the next decades. We can't just keep doing everything the way we've been doing it. I don't need to preach to this crowd, but I mean, on-site construction just has a limitation. And we've sort of reached that. And there's also a lot of environmental impacts that it has, and it's rising in cost. And so our industry is the future of construction, and we're trying to use that money, that $160 million, to really help these guys, help the teachers, give them the curriculum so we can build the workforce to go work in those 1,000 new factories. So that's what, we'll this time next year at this conference, we'll hopefully be able to say we won the money. And it's a nonprofit. It's not a for-profit institute. It's going to be based in Appalachia. The reason for that was the NSF stipulated that it had to be put in a place that had been disenfranchised. They didn't want to see that money hit San Francisco or Boston, all the major markets, because they're not really struggling. So they wanted to see this money, this $160 million, get spent in an area that needs economic development. So we picked Appalachia partly because a lot of the factories, a lot of the modular industry started in Pennsylvania, in New York, like Appalachia. So that's it for me. I was going to kind of turn it back over, and I think you're going to just open it up for questions. And
So, I mean, we'd love to open it up for any questions anybody has. No question is a dumb question. And we'd also love to hear if you guys are working on something already, because I think I kind of want to close with just this idea that we don't get any of this done. Like, this is not going to happen without collaboration. And I know everybody likes to think they're really great at collaborating, but this is like these guys sitting up here and literally telling you everything they do. It's people opening up factories and letting people walk through. Like, let's not hold everything so close, and let's share more between us, collaborate more in a bigger way. But does anybody have any questions or comments or ideas that they're doing? Yes, in the back.
Yeah, I just wanted to encourage you guys, because I'm a structural engineer. I've been in construction for 20 years. My kids are now getting to high school, and we're here local. We just moved back. But the CTE program here is really, really good in the high schools. So my daughter's a sophomore. She does fashion and sewing, and that's her thing. My son is an 8th grader who doesn't care about school, and everything is, well, I'm never going to use that. But he went to an information session at the high school and found out he could do CTE for building and construction technology, where they focus on woodworking, and then manufacturing technology. And Tesla recruits directly from the manufacturing tech program. And now he has a purpose in life. And everything he wants to do is to go into that and go into basically programming and maintaining robots. He uses his basic computer class time where they learn about PowerPoint and whatever to do JavaScript programming because the other stuff's too boring. So he's the type of kid that's going to get out of high school with those skills, and it's also giving him a lot of direction because I was having a hard time thinking about spending $100,000 sending him to a college where he was probably going to not do very well. So anyway, yeah, and I know we have Boxabl in town here, so I'm now thinking maybe I need to reach out to them and find out what they're doing with the local schools. But thank you for what you're doing, and keep it up.
Thank you for sharing that, and I would like to talk to you a bit more about what that school is, because I'd like to talk to them. Anybody has questions? Yes.
A wonderful presentation and conversation, so thank you so much. So my name's Taha, I'm from Canada, and I work at a standards development organization, and we develop education products on standards, codes, and regulations. So I heard a comment that there's a lot of people that are a bunch of students are interested in learning more about that. So I was just wondering, how do you go about teaching them the codes and standards and regulatory aspect? Like, is there specific courses they can take? Is it self-paced? They just go online and learn it? Because that is something that I'm looking into, and not-for-profit as well. We operate completely return on mission for a lot of these courses. So if we can contribute to that, we would love to do that across Canada, States, North America, wherever is needed. So if you could shed some light on that, I'd appreciate it.
I do know some information about this. Does anybody on the panel want to talk about it?
Oh, I would just say that I've worked, you know, the one thing is the teachers only know as much as they, you know, the curriculum they can give. So as these factories, give them feedback on what you want them to teach. So like in mine, I was giving them feedback, not necessarily code, I'll get to the code, but I was like, do a 2-week workshop on acoustical ceiling tile. You know, they were setting doors. Do it on storefront door or hollow metal doors. So give them feedback. They're more than, and we come to the factory and we'll help, you know, take the teacher through it or do some of our time to show them that. And then for codes, that was some of the feedback that I gave them is give them some feedback on what's on that print, what did the state, you know, mark up, and, you know, how to go through those inspections. And the CTEC program in Salem, I mean, those students get really excited when it's the inspector. They want to show off their work. They want to see if they pass the inspection. And the inspectors, what we tell them is, you know, we don't really want this, but we tell them, be as particular as you possibly can and give them those learning lessons. So that's some of the feedback I'd have in the code world.
Yeah, so Alan, if he didn't make that clear, the CTEC program teaches the ICC course in their program, and so it's built in there, and the ICC, if you didn't know, has been working on a lot of offsite code and all that type of stuff. So if anybody has any questions about that, I think Ryan Kolker he's not in here, but the ICC's out there. They've got information on that. Colby.
And, you know, one way to think about the code is, you know, the purpose of code. Right? And if you teach that and not necessarily the code, right? The code is, you know, a stack of books that would put anybody to sleep. But what's the reason for code? Safety, or as we're hearing more and more about, sustainability and energy efficiency. And if you teach kids about why there's code and why you need to check for engineering to make sure that there's a safety protocol, and I think that's the bigger piece of like the code that's the foundation, right? And we could establish that. I mean, you know, 5th graders would understand that. So I think and ICC is starting to think about curriculum, but I don't know if they've gotten back to grade school, right, to middle school. And so we're trying to figure out how to take what they've got going in the high school and CTEC and start to break that down into even smaller bits and pieces that are digestible by, you know, 7th, 8th graders. And any help on that, like, we'll take all the help we can get, because it's not easy.
Any other questions? Yes.
Two-part question.
We'll let you have it.
Two-part question. You've talked a lot about high schools and training programs like CTEC, but CTEC doesn't necessarily be defined by high schools. It's career technical education. And so of the factories that are in here, how many of you have approved certified training agent programs where you can turn apprentices into electricians? I know in our plant we had like 3 women that are getting close to turning out as card-carrying journey people or persons. So that's part one. Part two is, this one's a little weirder too, but second entry or re-entry programs, they do exist out there. I think some people probably feel a little concerned about hiring felons, but there's programs to train those people. They've got to be employed anyway. They're going to work somewhere, and why not in your factory?
I can speak to that. So first question, yes, we do. We have all of the trades, and we can certify you to get your journeyman's license in our facility. Second question, yes, we are engaged with our community college as well. And yes, I have been touring the local prisons, and I go to their cabinet shops and I understand what they're working with, and then I've worked with the director that will let me know, hey, this guy's really reformed or this gal's really reformed, and we see them, you know, exiting in the next 6 months if you'll do a mock interview. So I've been in the prisons and I have done mock interviews, and who doesn't believe in a second chance? So yeah, you know, that's not my main push by no means, but it is an avenue, and everybody deserves a second chance.
We have a number of ex-felons at our facility, giving them a second chance, as you mentioned. They've been great. You know, they feed into the culture. They love the opportunity. It's been excellent working with them, and you know, they're not going to miss a day of work because they have to play video games. So, you know, having them show up every day is just an extra bonus to giving them that opportunity to you know, rebuild their life.
Being in a positive culture too. So if you work at one of our companies and say you are exiting and needing a second chance, well, you're entering into a really high vibe area. You're entering into where, you know, your brother, your sister, I mean, we're all a family here. And so it gives them the opportunity for success. You know, we don't have druggies that work for our company. They would never even last. You know, they couldn't even make it past the first interview at our place. And so, like, if we are allowing a second chance, it's a perfect place for somebody to really be inspired to move on and move up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is to catalog for all the factories, who are all the resources, like what are all the schools in your area? And here's the person you should call. And I think you just gave us like a really good idea, is that we should add to that list the prisons, federal prisons, local prisons, and here's who, if you're looking for more workers and you want to, like, you know, have a program like what you guys are doing. The hardest part, and I think you guys said, was taking that first step, picking up the phone and making the call. Well, if you don't know who to call and your day's already busy and you got to go do the research and figure out, you know, like, I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do with this program is figure out, how do we bottle this? How do we package this? And then give it to a factory and say, here's all the resources you need. Here's who you can call. Here's some curriculum. Here's some really great ideas for programs that are being done. That's the whole point of this work that we're doing, is by watching what they're doing, you know, package this up and then replicate it across any factory. It doesn't matter if it's a modular factory, a panel factory, an HVAC factory. And let those factories then take that knowledge and build their own, you know, their own system that works for them.
Thank you. So I do appreciate, Colby, you pointed me out and calling me out on this. So this question is technically for all four of you guys, but predominantly for Alan, Craig, and Merrick. We as a company, so myself and those of you who know Kimberly, we are both very, very passionate about workforce development, about getting kids that traditionally over the last 15, 20 years have not been looking forward or looking towards trades, getting them to see the benefits, see the value of the trades, the less debt, yet far, far better income than average. And you can make a really, really good living in the trades with virtually no debt. How can we as a manufacturer who genuinely believes in this, how can we help you guys? What is the best utilization of our time, our resources, and our extensive knowledge in the industry? How can it be best utilized to help you guys recruit, to help just the industry in general understand the benefit of this, and to help drive adoption of trades in schools? Because to your point, Colby, we have to start before college. Once they're in college, their mind's already somewhat made up, they're already spending the money, right? The investments made, now they have to stick through. But if we can get to them earlier and we can educate them and educate the educators who don't know what's out there, right? How can we do that as a manufacturer? What do you guys see as the best venue?
Well, I think the theme of the conversation when she started was about exposure. And so being a partner and helping us make that exposure. So what makes CTEC successful is the public-private partnership. And so I invite vendors all the time that I meet here or that we use and go spend some of your time and energy and do they try to bring people in and do seminars, or so collaborating with us to try to get you in front of those students and getting more, just more of that exposure topic. So, and that's what I was saying earlier, when we go to our factories, you got all the trades there. And so I try to point it out, well, you can electrician, plumbing, HVAC, I mean, there's tons of different opportunities. And so it's just more of that exposure and reaching out to us, and we can plug you into our programs, reaching out to Heather and Colby, and where can I get plugged in and help on that exposure part. And that seems to do a good job.
I'm not sure if I have a solution, but I know part of the problem is the stigma that comes with the trades. You know, I definitely recognized it when I was in middle school and high school. My dad was a builder, so I was around it. But you know, everyone told me that I had to go to college. You know, that was, at least for a millennial, that was, you know, a measurement of success. And you were unsuccessful if you didn't go to college. You don't need a college education in order to get into the trades. You don't need a college education to be successful in the trades. And like you said, wages are only going up. There's, you know, look at the demographics. There's a shortage of housing. There's a shortage of labor. So those numbers are going to increase. And you're going into the trades without, you know, $100,000, $200,000 worth of debt hanging over your neck. So I don't have the solution, but trying to find a way to remove that stigma will only increase the supply and the interest in getting into the trades.
Merrick, do you want to comment?
I mean, I second everything that these guys said. With our group, Advanced Heating and Cooling, my friend Stuart, that comes with me a lot to the high schools, he says, I'm not looking for your, you know, A+ student. I'm kind of looking for your potato head. And that's his word that he says. And we go in and we just try to, you know, give them the exposure, tell them what it's like. And for Stu, when he's talking about it, he says, you know, you can be 22 years old and be making $70K a year with no debt. You know, we're going to pay for your college, we're going to pay for that schooling, and all you really got to do is get a good grade, you know, and show up to work and put in those hours. And, you know, their parents might not even make $70K a year. You know, it's that statement alone lights people up. And yeah, just teaching and exposure, it's all the same.
Yeah, and what I would add, if any other product manufacturers are in here and had this same question, like what can we do? Schools are clamoring. They don't talk about it. They don't publicize it, but they love the guest speakers. I think, Ellen, you had, when I was down there visiting, they were like frantic because they were supposed to be teaching weather barrier in their class and didn't have a weather barrier expert. And so I think I called up like some people at DuPont, and they got a guy that works in one of their facilities down there, over there, and he taught the class. So it's like the kids love that. These are guest people, they're experts in this one area, but it's just another small way for industry to get involved, and you don't become a full-time teacher, but you get to go be the hero for the day at this school, and kids love it, and the teachers love it.
Yeah, I would say, I was thinking about when you're earlier, like your product reps, send them out and go have them, not just as much to us, the end users of the product, put them in the schools too. I mean, I could totally envision CTEC wanting to do a 2-day on, using Zoom lock tools on line set material and, some of that stuff, bending some ductwork or something like that, and show the technical aspects. I mean, these VRF systems, that's pretty technical stuff. And I could totally see kids geeking out on that technology and the software and the Mitsubishi, software that you got to go to get that system to be firing off the way it's supposed to. I could totally see that as almost like a video game to them.
I think we are over. Are we okay for any other questions, or no, we need to stop? Yes, okay. So again, we're gonna put our information up here. Feel free to grab any of us for any questions, but we really appreciate you guys coming today and participating, and have a great rest of the World of Modular.
Great job.
Thank you.